Now, there's a way most people imagine World War III, not consciously and not even intentionally. It's just there. A single place, a sudden explosion, an unmistakable moment where everyone realizes this is it. World War III just started. A line that's crossed or a declaration that's made, and everything changes overnight. That image is so familiar, most people never question it. But the world that produced that kind of war doesn't exist anymore. And that's the first uncomfortable realization. Something already feels different about conflict right now, today. Wars don't end, they don't resolve, they don't even escalate the way that we expect. They stretch, they pause, and they restart under new names. And despite constant tension, nothing ever quite tips over. And that creates a strange feeling, like we're always close to something massive, but never actually get there. And that feeling isn't an illusion, it's the system working as designed. So here's the clarity that shifts the entire frame. I'm going to give you the mindset and the mind frame that you need so you can understand how World War III actually is going to look. World War III won't begin as a single decision. It will emerge from conflicts designed not to end. Not with a moment, but with accumulation. When people ask where World War III will start, they usually point to the loudest places, where tensions are highest, where rhetoric is sharpest, or where weapons are visible. And that feels logical. But the most dangerous conflicts are rarely the loud ones. They're the ones everyone thinks they understand, because familiarity creates restraint, and restraint creates space for continuation. The version of World War III most people imagine is inherited from the past. There's two sides, clear enemies, clear fronts, clear escalation. But modern power doesn't want clarity. It wants deniability. It wants flexibility, reversibility, plausible explanations. So instead of asking where would a war explode, the real question becomes where can conflict grow without anyone having to admit it's an actual war? So this is what actually defines World War III, at least the start of it. You strip away geography, ideology, and headlines, and what you're left with are conditions. World level conflict becomes possible where multiple major powers have overlapping interests. No single actor controls the escalation. Red lines are vague or contested. Retaliation can be delayed or indirect, and responsibility can be blurred. These aren't dramatic conditions, they're bureaucratic ones, which is exactly why they're dangerous. Now, this part feels counterintuitive. The places that feel closest to war are often the places least likely to ignite it, because everyone involved already understands the cost. There's boundaries, signals are clear, and escalation paths are rehearsed. That doesn't make those regions peaceful, it just makes them managed. They function like pressure valves, violent, unstable, but controlled enough to avoid collapse. Now, I'm going to break this down because this is where people begin to emotionally diverge. Not because they disagree on facts, but because they react differently to uncertainty. Some people believe danger comes from hesitation. If you don't draw lines, chaos fills the gap. Others believe danger comes from overreaction. If you push too hard, you create exactly what you fear. And then there's another perspective in realization that the real danger isn't action or inaction, it's overlapping restraint. Everyone holding back, but in different directions. Every major power today believes it's acting responsibly. Each one thinks this move is limited, that response is contained, so the escalation is reversible. No one believes they're starting a world war. They believe they're managing risk. But risk doesn't disappear when everyone manages it separately. It just accumulates. So the understanding is this: the real trigger isn't invasion. And this is where most people look in the wrong direction. World War III won't start with tanks crossing borders or a nuclear bomb going off. It's far more likely to begin with things that don't feel final. For example, a blockade, or a cyber attack, or an economic choke point, an infrastructure strike, a proxy clash involving advanced weapons. Each one feels temporary, each one feels deniable, and each one feels like it can be walked back until they stack and you have these attacks all going at the same time. Now, another modern shift people underestimate is that intent matters less than interpretation. When actions move faster than communication, misreading becomes escalation. No one has to want a world war. They just have to move faster than restraint can adjust. So I'm going to give you the mental picture, the mindset you need, so that way you can understand this and reorganize it in your brain. World War III won't start where tensions are the highest. It's going to start where ambiguity lasts the longest, where no one feels forced to stop, where every step feels justifiable, where escalation never feels like escalation. Now, this is why World War III is actually going to be recognized late. If it happens, people won't say, this is it. This is World War III. What they'll say are things like, this is contained. This is temporary. This is not the same thing. And those phrases will continue to repeat, because acknowledging a world war removes flexibility. And flexibility is the last thing anyone wants to give up. So I'm going to pull this all together so you can understand it and see where this all kind of connects. Iran avoids final war to preserve the system. Israel avoids final war to avoid destabilizing survival. The United States avoids final resolution to avoid ownership. Every major power is trying to continue without collapsing. World War III doesn't begin when someone chooses escalation. It begins when continuation strategies collide. So if you're waiting for a moment where everything changes, you may be waiting too late. Because the most dangerous wars don't announce themselves. They normalize themselves. They feel familiar, manageable, temporary, until they're not anymore. And by the time they feel different, they're no longer beginning, they're already happening. Now, serious analysts think this way. This is not something new. They just don't speak this way. In policy circles, military theory, and strategic studies, this logic already exists. But what's happening is it's buried in academic language and classified thinking and closed-door briefings and long reports that no one reads. So what I've done is I've just thought it through and I've translated that mindset into a language that people can understand. Because it's not what will happen, but what kind of world creates this outcome. And I realize that's extremely rare on YouTube. You probably won't find this anywhere else. But this is to give you what happens behind closed doors and what they're actually saying. Because this is the actual mindset that explains World War III in a realistic manner.